Hello and welcome back to That I Like Garage. Today we're working on a 1983 Porsche 911 SC. This is a gorgeous example of the 911 from this era. It's been very well maintained, and as we're going on, we're going to continue maintaining it. And today we're going to show you how to set the valve lash and do the valve cover gaskets on these. There's a lower cover and an upper cover. Both need to come off, and I'm going to show you how to set the lash and how to get to it. On the driver's side, there is a lot of different things you need to get out of the way just to access it. So we're going to do that side. We're going to start off with lifting the car and removing the lower, the exhaust side of the valve cover. And this way I'll let it drain meanwhile. Before we get to that, please subscribe to this YouTube channel, like, and comment below if any questions. Even if no questions, just thumbs up. Great. Let's get to work. So this is the valve cover, and we have to take off all these 13mm bolts, nuts, and slide it out. The gasket's under there, and also the valve lash we could set from under there. You could see over here that it's damp from oil, so it's leaking as well. You could see over here there's a trail of oil over there. Not a lot, but just enough to hit the exhaust. And once it hits the exhaust, it gives a nice poof of smoke into the exhaust, into the engine bay, and it seems like a real big issue, but it's really just a tiny little leak. So I'm going to start cracking all these open and pulling off the valve cover. First, we're going to go around and break all of these loose, and then we could use electric ratchet to just pull them all the way out. Alright, when I took out this valve cover, three of the studs came out with the bolt. They have to go in before anything, before we put the valve cover on. I'm just going to get that out of the way right now. I'm going to show you how to get these nuts off and to thread them back into the car. I take the vice grip and I grab it in the middle where there's no threading, and then I can shoot it with the impact. Now that we have the stud out, you take the long side and you put a nut in it, a regular nut, same pitch, same threading, and screw it in. The difference is, you see these plastic has rubber inside there. These are tighter to get in and out, so it prevents it from coming out. But we take a regular one. You might have to go to the hardware store to get one. And just thread it on backwards till you get about 2 or 3 threads on this side, and then you take one of the bolts that belong on it, take 2 wrenches, lock them in place, and now you could thread it back in. When it's time to take it off, you just break it loose. And unthread it. All right, so before we get to the valve cover, we need to take a few of these hoses off. This one I removed before. You can just pull it. It has connectors here. They connect down to there. So just that's out of the way. Now you have this hose here and this hose. Loosen these guys. And another one is you could loosen up the motor from here. So we could, we can move it around afterwards. This hose has a 10mm bolt. Remove it, and there's a latch on the back side of it that you could just pull it out of its location like that, and we freed up a lot more space. This guy, this motor can come out. It just has one electric connector over here and this band over here. So slide out the band. The electric motor gets pulled in. We can just leave it right here, that's fine. We don't really need to pull it all the way out. This guy needs to come out. That's it, now we have the access. Okay, so now we're going to remove the spark plug wires. I'm going to pull them out of the way. We have to remove this over here too. Now in this case, I'm changing the spark plugs and the wires also. So I'm not going to be reusing those. Just bend them out of the way, don't have to worry about it. And now I'm going to, just like the bottom, I'm going to break those bolts loose, those nuts loose. All right, so before we start doing the valve lash, I want to explain to you a few things. I want to show you something really cool about this example of the 911. This one still has the factory stickers. Let me shut this off. You could see the specs for what they want for the valve lash. They have the firing order. They have a few other things over here. So I think it's really cool. You don't always see these factory stickers. But let me show you two things. How to spin the engine, an easy way to spin the engine. This is not the crankshaft, but this is the fan. So I use the fan to spin the engine. I put just a little pressure on the belt, and the crank spins with it. All right, and now we're going to look over here. We're going to watch the valves open and close. We're going to be focusing on the last two cylinders. The back one is moving. Now the middle one, cylinder number 2, should be moving. There we go. That's the valve being opened. I'm gonna shut it. All right. All right, so this is what we're doing in general. These are the cams, these are the rockers, and these are the valves. You can see over here the cam is in the position where it pushes the rocker up, and in return pushing down the valve. That's not where we're trying to adjust. We need to adjust it when it's on the top or side of the cam, the side that the valve is shut. So right here is the measurement that the factory wants us to put our feeler gauge right in between the valve and the rocker arm. There's a little like hydraulic piston that swivels, that sits there. You do it in between that and the valve. That's where you want to take your measurements. Some people take measurements from here. It depends. By the way, the car sits like this. So this would be the intake, and this would be the exhaust. And then there's a heat shield that sits right here. So it's hard to really access each side. I find that you have a lot easier access from the bottom, and you can see everything a lot clearer. But you do which way you choose is fine. But you put your feeler gauge either here or here, and you tighten the screw down up to that point. And that's it. Okay, with the cam positioned in the spot that I was talking about, we have here, I did open this. I broke this loose, right? Let's leave this here. And now you take a 13mm socket and break it loose. I'm gonna loosen this one all the way so we can see. You see all the play we have there? So we're trying to minimize the play to exactly this. So we stick this in between the valve and that little hydraulic lifter, and then we tighten this screw. We tighten the screw till this guy doesn't move, right? You don't squeeze it down tight. You should be able to, slide it in and out. So I like to go up till it squeezes it, and then just back it out just a little bit. And then with your other finger, tighten it in location. It should be able to go in. See, that's a little bit too much slack. I'm going to tighten it just a little bit more. It should be able to, slide. Because it's a very tight angle, it's a little tricky. But you see the move, it's moving in there pretty easy. That's where we want to be. And we're gonna lock it in place. We're gonna use an open wrench for this. I'm gonna use an open wrench to tighten it, just so I can hold this guy, the flat head, in place, because it tends to tighten and spin too. It did, and that's exactly what it did right there. So I gotta redo it. I gotta loosen it up. I'm gonna loosen it up just a little bit more, just so when it tightens, it's gonna tighten into the correct spot. See, right now we have it moves in and out. And again, we're going to tighten it. With the screwdriver, I'm fighting it, like turning it the opposite way, so it doesn't try to minimize the movement. And look at that. See, it goes in and out, no issue. And I'm going to just snug it with my wrench. That's it. That's perfect. That's it. So that's how this one was done, and you just got to go and do each and every one that way. By the way, so for the feeler gauge, I bent mine to make it work for this. Normally they're straight, but to complete this task, I had to bend it into spot. After finishing adjusting everything, which is going to take you a long time, you take some parts cleaner, clean out all the way around. I'm going to get ready to put our gasket and cover back on. Always use a new gasket because these are one-time use and they're really brittle. Washer, nut. Now we could put in the new gasket. And valve cover. So that concludes another great episode of That LA Garage. Please subscribe if you haven't. Share it to social media if you haven't. Share with your friends or any Porsche pages or anything like that. I'm trying to build my my channel as big as possible. We're trying to hit that 1,000 view mark. Any questions down below? Any advice on anything with the channel or anything? Go for it. And that's it. If you ain't got haters, you ain't popping.